I'm delighted to say that joining me now is the head of Wycombe High School, Sharon Cromie, for one of our regular catch-ups. Hello, Sharon.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, how are you doing?
Well, still standing, just about.
I'm sure because the school holidays, you must be able to see them now sort of in the distance, so I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
I think everyone is, yes. We're just hoping that we can get everyone safely to the finishing line so that they can enjoy the summer holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you and I have spoken a lot over the past year and a half about changes to various rules that you've had to abide by, and I understand that is happening again with regards to the COVID bubble rule.
Yes, well, we're waiting to hear the Prime Minister's announcement later today, which is widely anticipated and rumoured in the press, to say that bubbles and final restrictions will be lifted generally from society. So we're waiting to hear if that is correct. We have been told by the Department for Education that they would tell us what the implications are for school as soon as the Prime Minister makes this announcement. So we are hoping to hear something later this afternoon or tomorrow. What we do know is we've been put on notice to be ready to do any testing that is needed at the beginning of the next academic year, so that mass testing that we did in March. But we're not totally clear on what the arrangements are going to be around self-isolation. We think that if it's going to be announced that will go, but we are not clear what is replacing it, whether the children then have to be tested in school or whether that is something that they will do at home if they've been in close contact.
Because currently the situation then is that if there is a positive test amongst one of the pupils, and this goes for absolutely any school, that then either it seems that actually the whole school shuts if it's a small school, or if it's in a particular year group in a larger school, then possibly that year group is then asked to isolate.
Yeah, each case on its own merits. So schools are asked to talk to Public Health England and to have discussions about what they need to do to safely contain it. So it depends how many contact points there have been. So in a school like mine, for example, we have year group bubbles. There's 192 children in a year group. They are typically at year 7, 8 and 9. They study 14 different subjects. So they might be in different classes with lots of different children. So you have to go through each of the 14 classes, work out who they've been sitting next to, tell them they're all close contacts. That's quite straightforward because we've got seating plans. The difficulties arise then through break and lunchtime and extracurricular contact, both in school and outside of school. So we then have to talk to the children about who they may have had their break with, who they've had their lunch with, who they've come across when they're socialising. So although we keep them in year group bubbles outside as well, they can be talking to other young people. And then, of course, which is a great thing and a positive thing, they have started all their extracurricular activities outside of school, their netball clubs, their hockey clubs, their dance clubs, football clubs, etc. So, of course, there's a responsibility to make sure that there's a sharing of information across that, and then they go on school buses. So that's another area. So one child can be a close contact of multiple, and when you add all of that up, that can quite easily result in quite a high percentage of a year group being asked to stay at home. And
that just sounds like such a lot to even consider. So, and the fact that you're doing your best to keep them in those social bubbles, but as you rightly say, well, outside of school, and particularly on things like school buses, I'm assuming that they're not necessarily staying in those bubbles because just practically you wouldn't be able to.
Oh, they can't. They it's just pragmatically impossible to keep everybody beside the same people for 24 hours a day. It's not possible at all. The thing that's giving us the most problems at the moment is actually the NHS track and trace app. So that is also telling us in school that staff and pupils have been in contact with someone, and that someone could be anywhere. Out on the street, in the supermarket, at a restaurant. It could have been absolutely anywhere. We don't know, and we can't determine that. But what we do know is that the app can work through classroom walls. So if we have someone who tests positive sitting in a classroom and they have the app on their phone, that can actually trigger through Bluetooth technology issues in another classroom. And of course the virus doesn't travel through the wall necessarily. So we have an awful lot of additional people self-isolating because of the app. So, and actually on Friday past we had 27 staff members contacted by NHS Track and Trace who could not be in school. So,
and that's a staggering amount.
Yeah, absolutely staggering. And there's nothing we can do. It's a legal requirement to self-isolate when you're contacted. Well, obviously, everyone wants to keep themselves safe and well, and we want to keep our community safe and well. But with the, you will have seen in the media that the cases are multiplying very, very quickly. Thankfully, they're not resulting in hospitalisation and significant illness, but they are resulting in a lot of track and tracing, and keeping a school open is only possible if you've got enough adults to teach the children and to look after the children to keep them safe.
And I would imagine that if you knew track and trace was completely 100% accurate, then maybe fair enough. But my own personal experience just over the last few days of doing a few more normal things. So I was lucky enough on Saturday to go to Wimbledon, which was fantastic, had a really great day. But I noticed very much that there was no evidence of the QR codes. There was no evidence of people doing anything along the lines of track and trace. And really, over the last few months, it's become very much something that we used to do that doesn't seem to be done nearly so much anymore, only in certain areas, such as if you're going into a medical setting, then it still is. And so that must be really, really frustrating that actually it is such a hit and miss type thing at the moment.
It is indeed. And, for example, we know that if we have an area in school where staff hang up their coats or their jackets, and they have their phones in their coats and their jackets, and they do not see each other, they do not come in contact with each other, they will still be pinged by the Track and Trace app because of the proximity of their phones. And, that's an issue for us because we want to support people to have it, but it's actually causing difficulties on top of all this complexity that we already have. So I would urge our politicians and our government to really consider the Track and Trace app, whether it is fit for purpose, and as we're widely expected to hear later, that this is moving to learning to live with the virus, exercising judgment and personal responsibility. We need to be really clear where this app sits in that and how reliable, if at all, it is.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. If then back in September you have to then return to doing all of the testing, how much of an impact is that going to have on the school?
Huge, because our workforce that we trained for March have not unreasonably gone back to, furlough is ending for many of them, and they're going back to their normal day jobs. So we're going to have to re-recruit to get a workforce to do that, because school staff can't just fit it in and top off. You can't stop teachers being teachers and people who are hired to do the school's finances or to set up science experiments for teachers. They can't stop all of that to do testing for children. So we do have to recruit a new workforce. We have to get them trained, and we have to reset up the physical centre. So a huge amount of work to get that up and running for September, and it's not yet, we haven't definitely been told we need to do it. It is a if needed. So we're waiting for final confirmation.
And I would assume that, though, you would rather have as much notice as possible, because I do very much remember our conversation sort of just before Christmas where with hardly any notice at all, you were suddenly being told that this was the case.
Yes, and it's looking like it's going to be the case again. We finished school on the 16th of July. It's now Monday the 5th of July, and if we get confirmation today or tomorrow, then we have to hire a workforce of around 20 plus and have to get the equipment and everything set up before other staff go on school holidays, or it's going to be pretty tricky to do it. I'm sure we'll find a way, but it's,
Yeah,
it has to be done, but it'd be quite nice to know.
Well, of course, and once again, just as human beings, when you are heading towards a holiday, you are naturally mentally winding down anyway, and so the fact that then suddenly that extra pressure is being put on you, it just doesn't seem fair at all.
Yeah, it's been pretty exhausting, but if that's what has to be done, it has to be done. But the track and tracing is actually more of a drain on a day-to-day basis because, of course, school staff nationally are doing the tracking and tracing of school-aged children on behalf of Public Health England on top of all their other jobs. And again, we've done this every school holiday. We do it at weekends for Mondays, and we were expecting to have to do it for the first week of this summer holiday, but that may not be needed now if they are going to say no more self-isolation.
Okay, well, we will keep our fingers crossed with regards to Boris's announcement later on.
Yes, we're very excited to hear what it says.
Yeah, I will really hope for the best for you. Let's talk about a couple of the good things that have happened. So presumably the pupils who are leaving you have actually been able to mark those events this year, whereas obviously last year they weren't able to.
Yes, that's correct. So everything last year was virtual, so it's actually been lovely and quite special, although there have been many challenges for our Year 13 leavers this year. At least they've been able to see each other face to face right up to their last day in school, which was tremendous. And they had lovely, we had silent discos and breakfast with a jazz band, and lots of them dressing up, and it was really joyous and a delight to be able to offer them that again.
And I'm very impressed with your lower school choir as well, who have been very much getting behind England in the Euros.
Yes, it was wonderful on Saturday night, and in my house anyway, to have Wycombe High School lower school choir singing "Football's Coming Home." So absolutely fantastic to see them getting behind it in that way. And we're very much looking forward to our Sports Awards evening, which is coming out shortly. And we've just had our Arts Award as well, where we've recognised all the fantastic performing and visual artists in school. So we are very much keeping going with all of these things, which is fantastic. And hopefully next year will bring, more relaxation, less restrictions, so that we are increasingly getting into our stride of being able to pick up things that we'd like to do and haven't been able to do.
I really, really hope so. When you're organising these things, do you have half an eye on the football schedule as well, thinking, well, hang on, we better not organise anything important on Wednesday night because we know that most people will be watching the football?
Yes, I learnt that very early on in my career as a head teacher, when we suddenly realised we had a parents' evening on a football night when England got through to some final, and we haven't made that mistake again, ever.
Yeah, I can well imagine, because either you just don't have anybody there, or presumably maybe you have people there and they're all sort of like covertly looking at their phones.
Yeah, a little bit distracted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. Sharon, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, throughout the school year on Wycombe Sound. It's been really, really interesting, an insight into what you guys are going through, and we do take our hats off to you for carrying on. And as I say, really keep our fingers crossed that actually when Boris makes the announcement this afternoon, that actually, that it's finally going the right way.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so indeed, Bob, and thank you very much for talking to me.
No problem at all. That is Sharon Cromie, the head of Wycombe High School on Wycombe Sound.